Have you ever noticed how, in the moments when you are truly happy, a warm dinner, a hug that lasts longer than usual, a soft, sunny afternoon beside someone you love, time suddenly feels as if it slows down, while on days of fatigue and stress, everything seems to flash by, as if someone has pressed fast forward. Tonight, in this gentle space before sleep, we will explore together why the brain bends our perception of time that way, from how memories are recorded to the meaningful moments that make our inner life thicker, deeper. If we understand why we feel time slow down when we are happy, perhaps we will know how to live more slowly, more fully. If this resonates with you, please subscribe to the Smart Sleep channel. When you tell the same memory over and over, you are not only strengthening that pathway in your own brain, you are also teaching the listener's brain. This is the kind of story that matters, that deserves to be remembered. The amygdala of the child or young person responds to the emotion in your voice. Their hippocampus records the context. This living room, this face, this name, along with that kind of feeling. That story becomes one of their anchors, whether gentle or heavy. If every back in my day opens into chapters of injustice, betrayal, how people are bad, how life is nothing but deceit, how I suffered so much because of so-and-so, then those young neurons will remember. The world is a place where you must always be on guard. The people you love are victims, and you yourself carry a debt and an unending anger. No one needs to say it outright. Your tone, your eyes, the details you choose are enough for their brains to learn. As they grow up, they may try to avoid repeating the tragedy by withdrawing or unconsciously recreate the same pattern of hurt. That is a form of memory transmission through stories, through interpretation, not through DNA. On the other hand, if in those very painful memories of your own, you choose to tell them within a different frame of meaning, not sugar-coated, still truthful, but with room for dignity, for the ability to overcome, for seeing both your own part and the part of circumstance, you are giving the listener another kind of legacy. You say, "Those days were very hard, and some people did treat me unfairly, but because of that, I learned this, and I decided not to carry that bitterness into the lives of my children and grandchildren." In that way, the young brain still learns about harsh realities, but with an added message. We are not defined for life by what others did to us. In this family there is pain, but there is also the capacity to turn pain into understanding. Think back to the stories you heard from the previous generation. Maybe your grandfather kept telling you about the war, about hunger, about those who fell. Maybe your mother told of raising children alone, choking up, yet still smiling. Maybe your father talked about failed businesses, half regretful, half joking. Those stories and the points they chose to emphasize planted in you a template. Life is struggle or life is effort. Other people are dangers or partners. You are a born victim or someone who can choose how to respond. Now, on the other side of the road of life, you are in that position for those who come after. Realizing this is not meant to make you panic, nor to make you feel I've been telling it wrong all these years. It is a gentle invitation. From tonight on, every time you have the chance to tell a story, remember you are holding a soft pen that can add color to the picture inside a young person's mind. You do not have to invent fairy tales. You only need to choose, out of the countless memories you carry, which pieces are worthy of becoming inheritance. Imagine two grandfathers, two grandmothers, who have gone through the same poverty, the same deceit, betrayal, hard labor. One, every time he tells a story, ends with, "So don't trust anyone. That's just how life is." The other tells it honestly, doesn't hide his tears, but ends with, "But because of that, I learned to value decent people and to be careful without being bitter." Children raised in those two homes will carry two very different mental maps. That is the science of social learning, of modeling. The human brain tends to synchronize with the story patterns it hears from early on. The strange thing is, even when we don't mean to, our unhealed scars very easily seep into the stories we tell. Someone who is humiliated will tend to describe life as a chain of injustices. Someone who is abandoned will unconsciously stress to their children and grandchildren that men, women are all like that. No one is trustworthy. Someone who once feared hunger will tell life as an endless battle, making the next generation grow up in material abundance, yet lacking a sense of safety. That is why learning to gently reframe is not only so we can sleep more peacefully, but also so we don't force the young to carry the heavy coat we once had to wear. Tonight, in this slow breathing rhythm, you can try a very gentle exercise. Imagine a grandchild sitting at the foot of your bed, asking you to tell one story about your life. If you could choose only one, just one, for them to carry for the rest of their life, which story would you tell? A story that proves the world is terrifying, or a story that shows a person can be hurt and still not turn to stone? A story that weighs them down, or a story that lets them see that in this family, people do not pass along pure bitterness? Maybe that story still begins with pain. That day, our family lost everything. That day, I almost died on the road. That day, they did something terribly unfair to me. But let it continue with things you may seldom have mentioned. Who helped you? How did you not collapse completely? What did you learn? Beyond anger, what did you decide to do differently when raising your children, so they would not have to walk the exact same road? When you add those parts in, the memory remains true, but the message shifts from "we are victims" to "we are those who carry painful memories, but we do not let them give birth only to more pain." Studies on families and communities show that children who hear honest stories with a structure of downfall, getting through, moving forward, often have better resilience in the face of difficulties, not because they naively believe that everything always turns out fine, but because their brains already hold a template. Our people can endure, can learn, and still keep their humanity. At your age, you already have enough lived data to tell stories like that if you allow yourself to. The hardest part is often letting go of the need to prove how much I suffered. Pain needs witnesses. That is completely human. But every time we repeat it to the young, we can choose. Are we telling to be understood, or telling to place on their shoulders the burden of having to avenge us, having to live in our level of vigilance? When we unconsciously speak in the voice, "Because I went through that, you must remember, no one is good," we turn painful memory into law. When we speak in the voice, "I tell you this so you understand, and I hope you will do differently," without needing to carry more hatred, we turn memory into thoughtful legacy. None of us is perfect. Surely there have been times we told it too harshly, used words that were too sharp. What matters is not never being wrong, but gradually recognizing the weight of what we choose to repeat. After an evening of storytelling, you can lie down and ask, if the child keeps that story as a template, how will they see life? If the answer makes your heart sink, then next time you can retell the old story with a different closing line. Very small, but the young brain will hear it. Before you drift into sleep, give yourself a moment to imagine this. Many years from now, when you are no longer here, Your children and grandchildren sum you up in one sentence. What will it be? He. She was the one who always told stories only of suffering and said that's all life is. Or he. She never hid the hard parts, but always told us not to let them make us bitter. That sentence doesn't need to be poetic. It will be formed out of countless ordinary nights like this one. Out of all the times you chose to tell a story this way or that way. So tonight, if your memory walks you through the stretches of your life, let it both soothe you and gently help you choose one story, just one, that you would give a young person if they asked, "What should I remember about our family?" Choose the story that lets their heart open wider, not shrink. And don't forget, when you give a lighter story to the young, you are also giving yourself a softer ending for a very long road. Perhaps, after all these stories about memory pathways, scars, and the legacy we pass on, the quiet question that remains is very simple. Tonight, right here in your own room, with your own heartbeat, what is one very small thing you can do so that tomorrow your brain will choose gentler paths? You are in that moment now. The night has deepened a little. The traffic outside has thinned. Maybe there is only the sound of the air conditioner, the heater, the clock, or that particular silence of the neighborhood you've lived in for years. Your body is tired in the way of age. Knees no longer quick, back a bit sore, eyes easily sting, and yet, somewhere in your mind, there are still streaks of thought that haven't dimmed. Health, children, and grandchildren, those who are gone. Money, a careless sentence someone threw out that you still remember. From here until real sleep, we usually let the mind wander wherever it wants, thinking whatever it thinks, recalling whatever it recalls, like leaving a TV channel running with no one holding the remote. Tonight, let's try something else. Gently step up, take that remote in your hand for a few brief minutes, then hand it over to the inner memory workshop. The interesting thing neuroscience suggests is this: what appears at the edge of sleep has a better chance of being treated by the brain as priority in its night shift processing, not in some mystical think it and it will manifest way, but through a very down-to-earth mechanism. The hippocampus and related networks will more strongly consolidate emotional imprints, images, and thoughts that are tagged as important right as they get to work. If every night, as your eyes close, you push to the front lines, phrases like "everything is getting worse," "I'm old and useless now," "tomorrow will be even harder," then the editing room simply does its job, reinforcing circuits of anxiety and helplessness. Not because the brain is cruel, but because you just handed it that kind of priority list. But what if tonight you gave it a different list? Not denying hardship, not lying to yourself, just adding in a few kinder, well-grounded signals so your brain has another option. One gentle sentence to yourself. 3 small, genuine points of gratitude. 1 peaceful image to close the day, all within a few minutes, right now as you lie here, breathing. Start with 1 very simple sentence, in your own voice. No need for fancy words or forced positivity. It could be, "Today, with all my limits, I made it through." Or, "I wasn't perfect, but I'm still here, and that matters." Or, "That's enough for today." This sentence is like your own hand resting on your own shoulder, signaling to your nervous system. Lower the alert 1 notch. To the brain, this is information. We don't need to keep all systems on high defense. We can shift into cleanup and repair. After that, very softly, invite in 3 things to be grateful for. Many people hear gratitude and immediately think it must be something grand or noble, then conclude, "I have nothing to be grateful for." In fact, the brain works best with concrete, small, tangible things. Today, you might be grateful that you could still walk to the mailbox and back on your own. Grateful for a hot cup of tea in the morning. Grateful for a short video call where you saw your grandchild's face, even if they were busy. Grateful that a painkiller worked. Grateful that it didn't rain right when you needed to go out. Grateful for a clean blanket. None of these erase your problems, but each one, if you pause to notice, sends a signal to your nervous system. Besides danger, this world also holds support. Choose just 3. You can count them on your fingers. Don't try to feel overwhelmed with emotion. Just acknowledge, yes, that was good. This tiny act, as many studies suggest, can shift how the brain tags memories, increasing the weight of genuinely positive pieces so they don't get completely buried under the naturally louder negative ones. When you repeat this habit, night after night, you're telling the editing room, these seeds matter too, please keep them. Then, after your self-kind sentence and 3 gratitudes, choose a peaceful inner image as the curtain closing your day. It can be a real memory. The lake where you once fished, the field back home, the autumn road lined with red leaves you used to drive along, your mother's kitchen, the beach where your family camped, the wooden pews in church, the distant mountain range you see from your window, or a gentle imagined scene, a clean beach with calm water, a cool morning forest, an armchair by the window with late afternoon light streaming in. The important thing is, it should be an image that, when your body sees it in your mind, tends to loosen, not tense. For a few breaths, place yourself in that scene. Notice one detail: the sound of waves, the rustle of leaves, the smell of wood, the light. No need to meditate correctly. Just remember a place where you felt at ease. To the brain, this is not mere fantasy. It is sensory data it can use to adjust your state. Regions involved in spatial imagery, emotion, and memory work together to create a safety template as a backdrop for sleep. Now, if we gather it up, you've just done 3 things. Sent yourself a kind message, chosen 3 small positive memories, and built a calm inner picture. And here's the interesting part. If you patiently do this every night for 30 days, not as a chore, but as a personal ritual, what happens inside your brain? Science does not promise miracles. You will not suddenly forget all your wounds, or instantly stop worrying, or turn into someone else. But there are some grounded hopes. First, the neural circuits that support noticing the positive, feeling safer, will be activated and reinforced more often. The brain learns through repetition. If every night used to be rehearsal for anxiety, now you are adding a new pattern. Second, the association between bedtime and interrogation. Self-attack may gradually give way to an association between bedtime and a sense of closing the day enough. The body starts to understand. Going to bed is when we hear enough, when there are 3 small good things, when there is a gentle picture, not when we open the prosecution files. Third, over a month or so, if you pay attention, you may notice a very subtle change in the inner story you tell about your life. No longer just, I've only walked through pain, but also, within all that pain, I had small, peaceful moments I choose to honor. The habit of scanning for 3 things to be grateful for will reveal fragments you used to ignore. Those fragments, if supported by sleep, shift from random bits into tiny anchors. Your memory map, slowly, quietly, gains a few more bright paths. You may forget some nights. That's okay. The brain does not demand perfection. It looks at trends. If in 30 days you do it for 15 nights, that's already different from 0. What matters is, each time you come back, you don't scold yourself. The way you treat your inconsistency is itself a neural message. At this age, I choose not to beat myself up over small things. I choose to continue. That too is programming. And remember, this is not just so you feel a bit better right now. It is also how you prepare a memory legacy for your future self. One day, when you look back on this phase of your life, how do you want it to appear? Only as years of worry, doom scrolling, counting pills, blaming yourself? Or as a stretch of time when, in the midst of all that, you decided to give yourself a tiny nightly ritual where you stopped fighting yourself and spent a few minutes choosing what deserved to stay? Before your eyes fully close, let's do a first draft tonight, right here. 1 sentence for yourself. 3 small things. 1 scene. That is enough for today. I have gone through this day with everything I had. What was there to be grateful for today? Perhaps I can still hear and see the world. Someone texted, called, remembered me. I have a place to lie down without fearing bombs or storms. You choose the 3 that are closest to your life, your peaceful image. Where are you? On that old chair looking out to the yard? On that autumn road with red leaves from years ago? In a quiet church with warm candlelight? Or simply right here in this very bed with familiar pillows and blankets, seen as a safe place rather than a transit station for worry? Hold all of it for a few breaths, then let the brain do the rest, and carry with you one last question, very light, like a string tied around your finger to remind you tomorrow. If I keep choosing messages like this for my brain every night, in 30 days, 6 months, a year, will my memory map still look the same? Or will there be more paths leading towards gentleness, gratitude, the sense that I treated myself more kindly in this last stretch? You don't need to answer now. Let the question drift with you into sleep. The brain is far more intelligent than we think. When we give it signals that are soft yet clear, it will quietly adjust. And tonight, your only task is this. Lay your head on the pillow. Loosen your shoulders. Allow yourself to believe that the moment you close this day is also the moment you are choosing a new memory path. Softer, truer to who you are, and worthy of the long road you've already walked. You can close your eyes now and let your thoughts fade like mist. If your mind still wants to wander, let it continue the journey to the next video, where we'll go even deeper into the mysteries of the inner world. And if your body is tired, just let this sound lull you into sleep. No effort needed, only breathing, and remember, everything you are searching for has been resting quietly inside you all along. For listeners at 45, 60, or beyond, you have probably lived long enough to know not all kinds of joy leave the same aftertaste. There is the kind of joy that leaves you empty right after, needing more, needing it stronger, louder, more expensive. And there is a very quiet kind of joy. Just the grandchildren coming to visit, the plant by the porch sprouting new leaves, the text that says, "I've arrived safely," going to get yourself checked early, and finding a problem in time. This second kind of joy doesn't make us go wild in an instant, but it quietly attaches to dopamine in a healthier way. Just enough for the brain to know this is good. Let's repeat it. without pushing us into a loop of craving more stimulation. From a scientific perspective, healthy rewards spaced out, meaningful in the long term, create smoother, more stable dopamine patterns. Strong, fast, densely repeated stimuli, constantly switching channels, constantly checking notifications, constantly seeking something shocking, create short, high dopamine spikes, followed by drops that make us feel more bored, emptier, craving new spikes. Over time, the brain becomes less sensitive to simple joys, demanding more to feel enough, while peaceful moments unfairly start to feel bland. That is why, at this stage of life, perhaps one of the wisest practices is not to run after ever new thrills, but to fine-tune the way we use dopamine, to be more deliberate about what we let the brain label as a reward. When you rest your hand on your partner's shoulder and say, "Thank you for still being here." When you praise a grandchild for some small good thing they did. When you allow yourself a word of praise because today you drank enough water, walked a few extra steps, turned off the TV 10 minutes earlier to breathe deeply. You are teaching dopamine to recognize that these things are worthy. Gradually, the brain will automatically mark them as important, helping you remember them, want to repeat them, and your days will become fuller, not just longer. In the evening, before sleep, this is a very good time to do that gently, instead of letting your brain drift along with the day's last tense news. You can sit quietly, even on your bed, in the soft dark, and ask yourself, today, was there one small thing that warmed my heart? Don't look for something grand, just one moment. Someone held the door for you. A doctor spoke kindly. A beautiful ray of sunlight. A simple dish that suited your taste. One time, you yourself stayed patient instead of snapping. When you recall it, feel it, and allow your heart to soften around it for a few breaths, you are softly calling dopamine over, but this time for something deserving. The brain will stamp it. Keep this carefully. If each night is like that, little by little, the memory bookmarks will gradually shift away from the noisy, short-lived zones toward the long, warm ones. Looking back, you'll see that your later years are not filled only with medical records or negative news, but also with countless gentle details you might once have overlooked. And then that sharp sense of time is flying by will soften, replaced by another realization. Each recent day somehow feels thicker, more substantial. At the end of this thought, there is a question I want to leave with you, not to pressure you, but as a gentle reminder. Tonight, which side is your dopamine on? Has it just been summoned by a long, unconscious scrolling session? An argument? A worry chewed over again and again? Or by a thank you? A grateful moment? One time you treated your body kindly, your loved one kindly, your own memories kindly. If the answer doesn't please you yet, it's okay. The beautiful thing is, tomorrow you still have the chance to choose again. You don't need a big plan. Just invite dopamine to be an ally of what is good. Let it stamp those moments which, if one day you sit and look back at this part of your life, will make you smile and say, "Yes, there, I lived rightly." And now, give yourself one slow breath. Feel your body on the bed, the silence in the room, the safety that is enough for you to close your eyes. Let your brain begin choosing the gentlest images of today to keep. Let the rest drift away. If dopamine is the quiet librarian putting stickers on the pages of life worth remembering, then there is another factor that decides whether a page is clearly printed or just skimmed over. Whether your body had time to sit down with that moment, when your heart is still racing, shoulders still clenched, breath still caught high in the chest from worrying. Can you truly touch your joy, or do you just brush past it like a passerby? Ask yourself honestly, how many times a day, over many years, have you had small joys that you barely felt? A compliment, a tasty meal, a sweet message, an afternoon of beautiful light slipping through the curtain. But your body was still in alarm mode. Must answer an email, must read the news, must worry about test results, must prepare for tomorrow. The mind wants to be glad, but the body is not yet allowed to rest. The brain receives the information there is something good here, but the whole nervous system hasn't exited fight mode. The result is that joy passes by like a notification, never becoming a full experience. Slow joy is the opposite of that. It is not explosive excitement, not fireworks, not shouting. Slow joy is the moment when the body and the moment are in sync. Heart rate lowered, breath steady, facial muscles relaxed, shoulders dropping from their defensive position, eyes softening. Then the parasympathetic nervous system, the part that lets us rest and recover, is activated. The organs inside understand that right now is safe, and only within that safety does the brain have enough bandwidth to fully feel what is happening. Picture a very simple evening. You finished the necessary tasks of the day. Instead of turning on yet another tense news program, scrolling 20 more minutes of anonymous arguments, you dim the lights, leave a warm yellow glow, sit on a chair or on your bed with a warm cup of tea or just a glass of water. You place your hand on your belly, breathe in deeply and out slowly, 3 times, 5 times. As you do, you notice your heartbeat evening out, your body feeling a little heavier against the chair or mattress. That is the door opening for slow joy. Joy doesn't rush in with fireworks. It arrives like a small wave. The sense of, I am still here. Today has passed. Now I am allowed to rest. Biologically, when we breathe slowly and deeply, especially lengthening the exhale, the vagus nerve is activated. It sends calming signals to the heart, lungs, digestive system, and to the brain regions responsible for vigilance. Stress hormones gradually decrease. In that state, if there is a pleasant moment, the laughter of a loved one, the softness of your blanket, the moonlight at the window, a beautiful memory you are recalling, the brain can more easily register it, cherish it, and stretch it out. Subjective time suddenly seems to expand. 1 or 2 peaceful minutes can feel more nourishing than an hour spent in a rush. Slow joy has a special quality that fits ages 45 to 90. By this stage, we have gone through the intoxicating highs of youth, the long races, the late nights for work, the years of always feeling not enough. The body has spoken up many times. Back pain, fatigue, blood pressure, restless sleep. Our nervous system has been summoned into alarm mode countless times, sometimes for things that did not deserve it. Slow joy arrives as a late but still in time opportunity, a chance to tell the body, from here on, I will treat you more kindly. You may recall a few rare moments in your life when your body and the moment truly harmonized. Perhaps a morning by a quiet lake, the surface still like glass, and the world's noise seeming smaller. Perhaps an evening in a familiar kitchen, you washing dishes in silence, hearing the water, and feeling an inexplicable peace. Perhaps a time lying in a hospital bed, but with a loved one holding your hand. And in that instant, amidst all uncertainty, there was a clear feeling. At least I am not alone. Those moments, though short on the clock, feel like long chapters when remembered, because your whole being from heartbeat and breath to thoughts was present. Sadly, in modern life, Even older people are swept into the rush to the point of forgetting their bodies. Screens lit late into the night, news pouring in, notifications ringing. Fear of missing something, the sense of having to stay updated. But a 70 or 80-year-old body cannot and does not need to live like a 20-year-old body. Every time we clutch the phone anxiously right before sleep, we push the nervous system back into alarm. Heart a bit faster, breath a bit shallower, muscles tighter. In that state, the brain cannot truly feel slow joy, cannot gently arrange memories, and sleep becomes shallow, broken, tiring. The gentle question for us tonight is, can we give ourselves a few minutes of slow joy before sleep? Instead of holding onto the phone, the worries, the old habits, not changing our whole life in one night, just trying a very small ritual that is deeply humane toward ourselves. For example, you choose the last 5 minutes before closing your eyes as slow time. You place your devices out of reach. You soften the room's light as much as you can. You sit or lie in a comfortable position, hands relaxed. You inhale through your nose for 4 counts, hold for 2, and exhale for 6, as if slowly setting the day down. While doing that, you let your mind search for one kind thing from the day to remember. Someone's smile, a gesture of care, a good decision for your health, a moment of beautiful weather. Just one, no forcing. When you do this, you are doing 3 things at once. First, you help your body shift from fight mode to rest mode, so your heart, lungs, brain, muscles understand it is safe now. Second, you give your brain a good content to stamp a positive memory, however small, gently marked by dopamine. Third, you stretch those 5 minutes into a pleasant space. Soften the edge of the whole day, allowing even a hard day to end on a lighter note. Slow joy does not deny real difficulties. Illness, loneliness, finances, loss. It is like placing a soft chair in a cramped room. It doesn't make the room bigger, but gives you a decent place to sit. In the room of life, especially in the later years, that chair is very necessary. It is the place where each evening you can sit for a few minutes. Let body and soul catch up with each other. Let the day be recorded kindly instead of ending in panic. From a self-development perspective, slow joy is a deep form of maturity. When young, we often chase loud, strong, fast joys as proof that we are alive. In the ripened stage, wisdom lies in choosing durable joys. Those that don't drain us, don't shred our nerves, don't leave us empty the next morning. Slow joy doesn't need much money, doesn't require going far. It needs permission. Permission for the body to slow down without guilt. Permission for ourselves to enjoy a warm moment without thinking, I don't deserve this. Tonight, before you fall asleep, ask yourself gently, can I create a slow joy for myself? It could be placing your hand on your chest and feeling your heartbeat, whispering, thank you for still working for me. It could be looking at the face of the partner beside you, though so different from long ago, and quietly thanking them for walking with you through so many years. It could be remembering the face of someone you loved who is gone, and instead of tormenting yourself, choosing to hold one beautiful moment with them as a gift, or simply feeling the silence of the room and letting it hold you, instead of seeing it as a frightening emptiness. The answer to the original question, can we give ourselves a few minutes of slow joy before sleep, lies entirely in your hands. No one else can decide it. And the remarkable thing is, With just a few such minutes each night, the inner map of your time will begin to change. Your days may still be busy, may still include worries, but each day will end with a small stretch that is slowed down, marked, soothed. That is the portion of time in which you truly live, truly rest, truly feel. And who knows, many months or years from now, as you look back, you may find that these gentle minutes before sleep are the golden threads connecting your days, turning the later years from a dark corridor rushed toward the end into a slow walkway where each step is present and meaningful. Before closing your eyes tonight, let your body and the moment meet in a bit of silence. For the rest, let sleep come gradually, like a kind friend gathering up those little slow joys and placing them in the most beautiful drawer of memory kept for you. When we allow the body to slow down, let heartbeat, breath, and shoulders sit down with the moment. Another door quietly opens. Does the way we see the world begin to change? In that calm state, do the eyes, the ears, and the heart suddenly have more space to see more, wider, deeper, into the very moment we are living? There is a very quiet observation from emotion science. When we are safe, joyful, warm, our field of attention naturally widens. It is not just that we feel better. The brain literally changes the way it scans the world. A happy person is less locked into a single thought, a single fear, a single obsession. They can look more broadly, see the view outside the window, notice the eyes of the person next to them, hear background sounds, pick up on little details that, when anxious, we never notice. You can test this with your own memories. Recall a day when your heart felt light, maybe a vacation by the sea, a Thanksgiving gathering with all the children and grandchildren, an autumn afternoon walking your old neighborhood. When you think of that moment, you don't just remember, "I was there." You remember the color of the sky, the leaves, the chill of the air on your cheeks, the smell of baking in the kitchen, the mingled voices, the warm lights in the living room, even the faint music somewhere. Many layers of experience stacked together, yet not chaotic. All of it creates depth. In that time, you weren't staring at a single spot, nor thinking of only one issue. You were seeing through a wide-angle lens. Now recall a day of intense worry, waiting for test results, tense over a call, distressed by a family situation. Then, even though there was still light, sound, loved ones around you, the world seemed to shrink to a single point. The mind stuck to one question. What if? If this, then what? Everything else faded. That is exactly what the brain is built to do in danger. Narrow the lens to focus on the threat. That mechanism helped our ancestors survive in the wild. But in modern life, it paints many of our days in a single color. The color of worry, fear, lack. For those between 45 and 90, this narrow lens feeling is familiar. We worry about health, children, grandchildren, money, loneliness, the country's future, things we cannot control. Worry can be a sign of responsibility, love, experience, but if it takes the whole frame, we unintentionally miss all the parts of life that are quietly okay. The world stays wide, but we see only one stain. The good news is, just as we can train the body to slow down, we can train our lens to widen, not by denying fear, but by letting other things appear in the same frame. When we are happy, that's exactly what happens naturally. The brain is not straining to defend, so attention opens, embraces more information. It records the sky, faces, smells, sounds, and inner feelings. Because there are many layers, happy moments look thick, like a painting with depth, not a rushed line. Imagine a Christmas Eve you once spent when the family was still complete. You sit in your chair, your back may be a bit sore, but in your inner frame there is more than that pain. You see the lit tree, gift wrap, children's eyes, the sound of a soda cap popping, the smell of roast chicken, old songs playing on the radio. Inside you is joy, a bit of nostalgia, gratitude. The lens is wide, so that night, though long past, remains vivid. And so, in memory, it feels longer, more whole. Here lies an important lesson well suited to the later years. Depth of experience is not reserved for the young. It belongs to anyone willing to widen the lens. A 5-year-old can absolutely look with a wide lens. While walking slowly in the neighborhood, not only thinking my legs are weak, but also noticing the neighbor's tree changing leaves, hearing birds, seeing a young couple walking their dog, feeling the cold air they were once too busy to notice. None of that erases the fact that the legs are weaker, but it places it within a wider picture where life still continues, still has its own kind of beauty. Emotion science calls this the broaden and build effect. Positive emotions broaden the field of attention and ways of thinking, and from there build new resources, connection, ideas, resilience. Negative emotions do the opposite, narrow the lens for short-term survival. At our age, we have a power we used to ignore, the power to choose which mode we live in most of the time. No one avoids narrow lens moments, but we can deliberately invite the wide lens to show up more often, especially in safe spaces like the evening before sleep. You can practice this with very small actions, like gentle prompts to your brain. When you step outside to get the mail, instead of rushing back in, pause and look farther. The sky's color, shapes of clouds, bare branches, or full leaves. The sound of cars. When talking with your grandchild, instead of only worrying about what advice to cram in, notice their eyes as they speak, how they move their hands, whether their voice is fast or slow. When you make yourself an evening cup of tea, don't just think the doctor said cut down caffeine, but watch the steam rise, smell the aroma, feel the warmth in your hands. Each time you add a layer like that, you are gently turning the lens wider. Interestingly, when the lens widens, our worries change size. They don't vanish, but they no longer fill the whole screen. Worry about health, seen alongside the morning light, a child's laughter, a nurse's kindness, becomes less toxic. Grief for someone gone, set within a frame of beautiful memories with them, and of the people still here, turns into a low note with a rightful place, not a flood that drowns everything. A wide lens doesn't deny the dark. It simply refuses to enlarge it until it covers life itself. From a self-development view, widening the lens daily is a very practical way to make life less dull without dramatic changes. We often think that to make life meaningful, we must do big things, move, change careers, travel far, start a new project. Those may be good or may no longer fit our strength or situation. Meanwhile, widening the lens is something we can do immediately, anywhere, even lying in bed listening to these words. You are lying there, perhaps with sore knees, a heavy chest, unresolved matters in your heart. Yet right now, if you allow the lens to widen a bit, you may notice the pillow under your head is much softer than in the old days. The blanket is warm enough, your breath still going in and out. The room is quiet. A small lamp glows gently. Perhaps far off there is the sound of cars, or wind, or the heater. All those elements, if acknowledged, become witnesses that in this moment you are safe enough to sleep. And this moment before sleep, seemingly so ordinary, can become a deep memory if lived through a wide-angle lens. Finally, I want to leave you with a small question to carry into sleep like a kind companion. Tomorrow, where could you widen your lens just a bit? Not much. Maybe 10 seconds really, looking at the sky before your door instead of hurrying inside. 20 seconds truly listening when someone speaks to you, instead of rushing to reply. 30 seconds before sleep to recognize at least one thing in this day that deserves gratitude. Each time you do that, you add another stroke to the painting of your life, making it less flat, less monochrome. Objective time will keep moving, as it always does. But whether you look through the narrow lens of fear or the wide lens of awareness and gratitude is what decides the quality of the life left to live. Tonight, before closing your eyes, try looking at your life half a step wider. Not only at what is gone, but also at what remains. Not only at worries, but also at the tiny, gentle things quietly holding you up. Then let your eyes close in that feeling. The rest, let sleep continue to widen that lens in silence, so tomorrow you wake to a fuller, deeper, kinder frame for your own life. When we practice seeing life through a wider lens, gentle details start to show. A glance, a cup of tea, a quiet afternoon. And then, very naturally, another question appears. When time has passed and we look back, what will remain? Will we remember ourselves as someone who trudged through years of exhaustion, or as someone who knew how to cherish small but warm moments? And deeper still, what kind of memories are we quietly cultivating for ourselves? If you close your eyes now and step back 10 years, what appears first? It is rarely each identical workday, each rushed breakfast, each late night of doom scrolling. Our brains have a very interesting and practical habit. They compress the stretches that are uniform, repetitive, chronically stressful without clear highlights. The days that look the same are merged into a blur. Busy period, stressful time. Years of nothing but worry. In contrast, meaningful moments, not necessarily grand, only needing to touch a deeper emotion, are kept in high resolution. It could be a trip, a reunion meal, a rare free afternoon after illness, an apologetic hug, a time you chose to stand on the side of what was right. Because of them, when we remember, periods rich in such moments appear thicker, longer, more vivid. Memory researchers call this part of the experience summarization mechanism. The brain cannot store every minute of our lives, so it selects key frames, peak moments, ending moments, meaningful moments. The rest is compressed, like fast-forwarding a long film without standout scenes. When we say that period was so exhausting, it is often because in memory it has shrunk into a dark block, without detail or exit. When we say that time was beautiful, it is usually because there are enough bright points preserved to cast light onto the darker parts. What's fascinating is that with the same objective reality, the way we feed memory can differ greatly. Two people go through the same hard season. Illness, caregiving, shortage. One, looking back, keeps only fatigue and bitterness. The other, without denying the pain, still keeps a few frames. Hands clasped tight in a hospital room. A bowl of soup someone cooked and brought. A joke cracked during an IV drip. The moment of looking at each other and knowing we are not fighting alone. For the second person, that memory is not just a black block. It has dots of light, depth, meaning. They don't differ in years lived, but in the kind of memories they chose to cultivate. At 45, 60, 80, we have an advantage the young do not. enough years to see clearly how memory works. We know many things we once thought were huge deals have faded. Many sleepless nights over some issue now seem not worth it. Yet some very small details refuse to fade. The laughter of a loved one who is gone, the first morning after danger had passed, the yellow light on an old wooden table in winter evenings. Those remain because they carry meaning, affection, our real presence in those moments. There is a beautiful phenomenon in the psychology of aging. As people grow older, if their mental health is relatively stable, they tend to recall more positive than negative events, not because they pretend to forget pain, but because the brain and heart, after a long journey, begin to prioritize what nourishes. Older people often tell their life stories as tales of lessons, filtered through kindness toward themselves and others. They don't obsessively list failures. They emphasize the times they rose, the people who helped, the situations from which they learned. This is a healthy form of memory selection. But that does not happen automatically for everyone. If for years we focus only on mistakes, injustices, what we lack, what others did wrong to us, the brain will listen. It will flag, keep, replay. Eventually, when we look back, what stands out are proofs that I was treated badly. I was wrong. Life is nothing but unfair. Other memories, also real, also warm, get pushed into the background and fade. That is why the question, what kind of memories am I nurturing, is not poetic fluff. It is very practical, especially when we've already passed half or nearly all of our journey. Tonight, in the quiet of the room where you lie, you can try revisiting a period you once thought of as nothing but stress, a job that exhausted you, a family crisis, a year of caregiving, a time of severe financial strain. Let your memory paint the first picture as it comes, heavy, dark, tiring. Then, if you feel safe enough, gently ask, during those months, was there any moment, however small, that deserves to be kept as a bright seed? A simple meal where everyone still sat together, a friend calling to check on you, a doctor speaking with humanity, an afternoon when you still noticed beautiful light through the hospital window. If there was, let those images grow a little larger in the frame, not to deny the pain, but to remind yourself that even in the dark, there were moments when you still touched life in some way. When we do this, we are rearranging memory. Neuroscience calls it reconsolidation. Each time we recall something, that memory is opened up and can be gently edited, then saved again with a new tone. If we always remember it with anger and resentment, it will grow increasingly bitter. If, after acknowledging the pain, we start adding a bit of understanding, a bit of gratitude, a bit of kindness toward ourselves, that memory gradually becomes less sharp. We cannot change what happened, but we can change how it lives inside us. With happy periods, the interesting thing is that they are often already thick because they contain many details. But sometimes, because we are so used to them, we summarize them carelessly. Those were good years. If we spend a little more time, we can make those beautiful chapters clearer, like a treasure to lean on in the years ahead. Recall a summer with your family around, a stretch of life when your health was better, a time when you felt useful and trusted. Go into detail: who sat where, what smells were in the kitchen, what music was playing, what the weather was like that day. The more clearly you remember, the thicker and longer that chapter becomes. And in the present, it turns into a source of warmth. I did have years like that. I did love and was loved like that. My life is not only bills and diagnoses. So, in the present, what can we do to nurture future memories? The answer is very gentle but demands intention. We choose how we end each day. Before sleep, if we load our minds only with bad news, arguments, things we haven't achieved, the brain will learn. This is what needs to be stored. If every night, no matter how hard the day has been, we still try to find one tiny thing to acknowledge someone who helped us, a moment we didn't give up, something beautiful we saw, we are teaching the brain, these are important too. Please keep them for me. During sleep, the brain does its organizing work, transferring memories from short-term to long-term, discarding what's unnecessary, strengthening what is repeated and emotionally tagged. If, right before sleep, we fall into a loop of replaying awful scenes, we are unintentionally asking the brain to deepen them. If we spend a few quiet minutes recalling something kind, something beautiful, something we want to learn, we are sending the brain a different set of instructions. Gradually, over time, the type of memories that occupy most of our inner space will change. This does not mean we must pretend to be happy or paint everything pink. It simply means we begin to use the selective power of those who have lived long to decide, in what tone do I want the story of my life to be told? In the voice of bitterness, or in the voice of someone who learned to recognize light, even very late? When you tell your grandchildren about the past, do you want them to hear an indictment, or a truthful account that still leaves room for gratitude, forgiveness, and quiet pride? Tonight, before letting sleep carry you away, you can try a very small exercise. Choose one period of your life, any period, and ask yourself, if I could keep only 3 frames from that time, what would they be? Don't pick the 3 worst things. Your brain is already very good at holding on to those. See if there are 3 images, however small, that remind you that you were once strong, once loving, once loved, once living meaningfully. When you choose and look closely at those 3 frames, you are rebuilding the structure of that memory in a way that is kinder to your soul. And then come back to the very near present, today. If you had to pick one frame to keep from this day, what would it be? It might be an ordinary moment. You prepared your own meal. You stepped outside and took in the air. You laughed at a funny video. You listened to someone's story with a little more presence than usual. If today doesn't have one yet, you still have a few minutes right now to create one. This is the moment you lie down. Allow yourself to breathe slowly. Look back at your life without too much harshness and whisper, I choose to nurture the memories that make me gentler with myself. We cannot control everything that happens, but we can influence how it is recorded. When we understand that joy often lasts longer than pain in memory, not because life is biased, but because we can choose what to highlight, that is when time becomes less frightening. The rest of our life is not only about what will happen, but about how we will remember it. And right now, in this quiet room, as your breath slows, you have already taken a very small but very important step. You are gently, consciously answering the question, what kind of memories am I cultivating? Through the way you close this day, let that thought rest beside you like a thin blanket, and trust sleep to do the rest. When we begin to actively nurture warm memories and look back at life with softer eyes, a slow realization surfaces. Not all years are remembered the same. Some long stretches fade, while certain moments stay for a very long time. So why is it that the further we go, the more it feels like time is rushing past, slipping from our hands, except for a few rare instants? And if the secret lies in first times, is it too late to deliberately design new firsts for ages 60, 70, even 80? When we are young, life is a book where every page is something new. First day of school, first time driving alone, first trip away, first love, first failure, first move, first child. The brain, especially the hippocampus, responsible for forming long-term memories, works at full capacity. Everything is unfamiliar, demands attention, and deserves to be recorded. Ages 15, 20, 25 are therefore full of markers. We have countless clear frames to look back on. When we turn around later, those years seem long, rich, vivid, because each step left a mark. But after the midlife point, somewhere around 40, 45, something very human happens. Life starts to repeat. We know the road to work, know the routines, know how to make dinner, know our patterns of tiredness. Responsibilities are many. The path is clear. Surprises are fewer. For many, after 45 is the operation phase. Caring for children, aging parents, career, health, home. Every day is full, yet very similar. In the brain's language, this is a region of low novelty. Scientifically, when the brain encounters something familiar, it optimizes. It doesn't record from scratch, but uses existing scripts. If every morning you take the same route, follow the same habits, hear the same sounds, the small differences are less likely to be stored. Time flows evenly. But looking back, that entire stretch is easily compressed into one block. Those working years, those years raising kids, those stressful years, not because they weren't important, but because, for memory, they lacked distinct new pillars to latch onto. That's why we hear so many middle-aged or older people sigh. These past years flew by. It's New Year, and suddenly the year's over already. The kids grew so fast, I can't feel time at all. That feeling is not just a complaint. It reflects how memory is being organized. Few segments, few firsts, few clearly marked moments. So everything slides past in the mind like fast-forwarded footage. But there is a beautiful exception. Have you noticed that even after 45, 60, or 70, some events still imprint themselves sharply and thus slow time down? The first time you held your grandchild, the first time you came out of surgery and stepped into the sunlight thinking, "I'm still alive." The first time you learned to use a device to video call family. The first time you joined a drawing class, a light dance class, a book club, a volunteer group. The first time you stood up to say sorry or forgive someone after many years of postponing it. These first times, whether at 55 or 75, make the brain switch back into strong attention mode. This is new, important. Record carefully. In those moments, attention widens, emotions awaken. The body is more present. Dopamine marks, the hippocampus records. The new memory inserts itself into the timeline like a bright milestone. Later, when we look back, the period around those new experiences appears thicker, clearer, more story-filled. We no longer only say those retirement years just went by. We begin to say, that was the year I started learning music. That was the year I went on that trip with my old friends and laughed until my belly hurt. That was the year I decided to help at the church, temple, or community center. That was the year I finally told my child the truth about my past. So simply by understanding this mechanism, we come to a gentle yet direct question. Do we dare to design more first times for ages 60, 70, 80? Not reckless, unsafe firsts, nourishing firsts. The first time trying a creative hobby, the The first time allowing ourselves to say no to what drains us. The first time choosing to reach out instead of waiting. The first time caring for our body like an important friend. The first time telling our grandchildren our life story in a calm voice, without avoidance. Many think first times are a privilege of youth. In truth, they are a gift for anyone still breathing and willing to step half a step beyond the familiar. At 60, an afternoon going to the local library and picking a book on a topic you've never understood: astronomy, painting, the history of a region, meditation, music, is also a first time. At 70, learning a few gentle balance exercises, joining a Tai Chi or chair yoga class is a first time. At 80, asking a grandchild to show you how to use an app to look at old photos, or sending a voice message to an old friend far away, is a first time. Each such moment wakes the brain up in a healthy way, adds a milestone to time, and slows down the subjective sense of life rushing by. Research shows that learning new things and engaging in positive social interaction helps maintain brain plasticity, reduce the risk of cognitive decline, and improve mood. Beyond dry numbers, this means when we actively create new experiences, especially those linked to values and connection, we are building clearer chapters for the rest of our life, instead of letting them all be labeled "those years I got old so fast." We separate them into the year I learned to paint, the year I took my grandchild to their first national park, the year I joined a volunteer group calling to check on people living alone. Of course, at this age, first times must go hand in hand with respect for our bodies. No dangerous jumps. No need to prove we are just like before. First times can be small and safe. The first time trying a hard, healthy but tasty recipe. The first time writing down a piece of your life story for your family. The first time listening all the way through to a classical or jazz piece you always skipped. The first time visiting a museum in your own city that you've never entered in 50 years. These things don't demand heroic strength, but they are new enough for the brain to notice, meaningful enough for the heart to stir. Tonight, in the stillness before sleep, you can play a small game with yourself. If next year you could choose just one first time to design for your life, what would it be? Don't think too grand. Keep it gentle. It could be the first time joining a reading group at the library, the first time writing a handwritten letter to my grandchild, the first time signing up for a free class on senior health, the first time attending a community music gathering, the first time telling my doctor about my fear instead of just nodding. Just one. But imagine that if it happens, the memory of next year will have one entirely different bright point. When we dare to give ourselves such firsts, we are quietly answering a deep fear inside. The fear that the rest of life is only waiting, decline, repetition. In truth, for the brain and the heart, it is never completely too late to feel that we are still living, not just drifting. Meeting someone new and listening to their story, trying a new interest, taking on a new role, however small, in the community. All of these send a strong message to the mind. I can still expand. And there is another very subtle kind of first time, often the hardest, the first time looking back at our own life with different eyes. The first time allowing ourselves to forgive a younger, clumsier version of who we were. The first time accepting that we did our best with what we had. The first time telling our loved ones we love them without waiting for a special occasion. The first time choosing to release an old grudge so we can sleep lighter. These inner firsts, when they happen at 65 or 78, may matter more than any party, trip, or course, because they change the tone of our entire life story. At the end of this passage, what remains is not a checklist of things to do, but a question to carry into sleep. If I cannot lengthen time, what can I do so that the years ahead do not blur past in my memory? The answer very likely lies in 3 words. Add first times. Add small, gentle, safe, nourishing firsts, not to prove anything to anyone, but to remind yourself that every day you are still alive can still become a new page, not just a smudged copy of yesterday. Now, as you lie still and your eyelids grow heavy, allow a light image to appear. You, at your current age, with a tiny glimmer of curiosity in your eyes. Not loud, not showy, just a person who has walked through many seasons and is still willing to plant one more seed. Let that thought drift with your breath, like a whispered promise to yourself. Tomorrow, or next week, or next month, I will give myself one small first time. How many are enough? Just that is enough to make time slip less quickly and to turn the later years into a chapter which, whenever you look back on it, lets you smile. Very softly, but truly, when we dare to give ourselves first times at an age no longer young, time, in a way, obediently lingers a little longer beside us. But then a natural question rises. Not all new things are the same. What is it that makes certain small, simple moments expand in memory deeper, longer, warmer than louder, flashier ones? Perhaps the secret lies here. That joy strikes something we truly believe is important. Let your memory lead you back to a family meal you still remember vividly. Not necessarily a major holiday, not a fancy restaurant. Maybe just the old table in a familiar kitchen. A faded tablecloth, simple dishes. But that day, everyone was fully there. Someone had just come home from far away. A story, long hidden, was finally told. Laughter mixed with tears. Someone said, "Thank you. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry for back then." Those details hook into something deep within you. Family, kinship, reconciliation, gratitude. And so, to the brain, it is no longer just a meal. It is a meaningful sequence. It gets labeled, keep carefully, and placed into long-term memory with special priority. Scientifically, when an experience taps into our core values, what we hold most important, like love, honesty, responsibility, contribution, freedom, faith, kindness, the brain activates not only the reward system but also regions linked to meaning, such as the prefrontal cortex and emotional integration areas. Dopamine, as we've said, does not work alone. It pairs with the feeling this is right, this is me, this gives my life direction. That combination makes the memory both clear and deep and enduring. Objective time may have been only an evening, but inside, it stretches out like a long chapter. In contrast, joys that are not connected to our values, even if highly stimulating, tend to fade fast. An impulsive shopping spree, a pointless online argument, a sleepless night watching things we forget. By morning, they may bring brief excitement, but rarely anchor to anything lasting. The brain registers stimulation, but finds no meaningful hook. Days or weeks later, they dissolve into blur. Time passes both quickly and emptily. We have lived, yet accumulated few extended sequences we can lean on. This shows especially clearly as we move into 45, 60, 80. The older we are, the more we realize we are no longer excited by every kind of fun. What truly moves us is no longer flashing lights, loud headlines, or shallow praise, but quieter, steadier things. A friend who still remembers our birthday. A grandchild who calls just to ask, "How are you?" A morning when the body aches, yet we still get up and do a few small exercises out of respect for ourselves. These are moments when joy aligns with inner values. Family, connection, dignity, gratitude, perseverance. When joy and values walk together, the experience becomes aligned. The nervous system is not torn in two directions. We are not both happy and feeling somehow wrong. We don't have to justify ourselves. Instead, there is a very calm sense. I am using my time in the right place, and that feeling, in a way, is precisely what lengthens our subjective life. Because each moment lived in line with what we believe truly matters does not pass meaningless. It settles into a quiet foundation beneath our memories. Think of a small kind act you once did, maybe many years ago. Helping a stranger push a stalled car in the cold, visiting a neighbor who just lost someone, choosing not to say something hurtful when you easily could have, donating a modest sum to a cause you believe in. Others may have forgotten, but when you think of it, your heart still warms. That is a clear sign that act matched your values, and your brain stored it as part of who I am. It became a time marker deeper and more memorable than a string of days spent merely getting things done without ever asking, "Does this feel right to me?" People from 45 to 90 often hold a treasure of values already tested by fire. They know what matters more: winning an argument or preserving a relationship, an extravagant meal or a shared table with everyone present, a line on a resume or a night's sleep without regret. Yet sometimes, because they are so used to sacrificing, taking responsibility, worrying, they forget that they themselves also need to be nourished by moments aligned with their values, not just working to uphold everyone else's. If we live against ourselves for too long, saying what we don't believe, doing what goes against our heart just to please others, neglecting our health and self-respect, pretending to be fine while hollow inside, the memories from those years are often very tiring. Looking back, we feel something vague. I was there, but it wasn't truly me. That time shrinks in memory not because nothing happened, but because those happenings did not reach the core. They didn't stretch the moments, they wore them down. So the gentle yet direct question for us is, if we want our life to be longer in the sense of being worth living, do we dare to prioritize joys that are tied to our values? Not by erasing all responsibilities, but by each day choosing at least one action, one small moment that aligns with what we believe is right. For example, if you consider family important, a short but wholehearted call with your children or grandchildren each day stretches time more than hours of mindless scrolling. If health is a value, 10 slow minutes of walking on the porch in the late afternoon light, feeling each step, may later become a very memorable long sequence. If kindness is a value, a simple "Do you need any help?" to an older neighbor is enough to warm many winters in your own memory. Science supports this too. Studies on meaningful living show that when people feel their actions are aligned with their personal values, they experience greater satisfaction, resilience, and connection. Even in hardship, the brain encodes those moments with a deep positive tone. Not just shallow stimulation, we are less swept up in chasing highs. Instead, we start investing time in things that have a lasting effect on how we see life and see ourselves. Evening, right before sleep, is a beautiful time to gently check in on this. Instead of only asking, "What exhausted me today?" add one more question. Was there a moment today when I lived true to what I believe? It may be very small, You listened instead of interrupting. You chose not to speak ill of someone who wasn't there. You ate a proper meal instead of skipping it out of anger. You said thank you to the cashier. You said I love you to your grandchild. When you notice that, even just one thing, let it spread out for a few breaths. In that very moment, you are stretching an intentional moment, giving it an honored place in memory. And if there is a day when you look back and feel, today, nothing matched my values at all, there's no need to scold yourself for too long. See it as a reminder that tomorrow you need to be a bit more deliberate. Recognizing the gap is already a step forward, because the one who knows what they're missing is already ready to choose again. Value-based joy is not loud, not boastful. It is like a small warm light in the kitchen at night, not as dazzling as fireworks, but enough to guide you, enough to confirm that you are not entirely in the dark. If each day we light such a lamp, the years ahead will no longer be just waiting time between doctor's appointments or sad news. They become the years we use to live closer to our true self. Before you close your eyes tonight, let a simple question rest on your pillow. Tomorrow, what very small thing can I choose that fits my deepest value? It doesn't have to be big. No one else needs to know. But if each day holds one such choice, those small pieces will fit together into a life that, when you look back, you won't only count in years, but in the number of moments stretched by meaning. Then perhaps you'll smile and realize you have secretly lengthened your life in the best possible way, not in duration, but in depth. And that is a gift that, right now, in this quiet moment, you have already begun giving yourself. When we let joy be tied to what truly matters, each minute suddenly seems to stretch out, softer, deeper, and then, very naturally, another question appears. Perhaps in those moments, we are quietly adjusting time, not controlling the hands of the clock on the wall, but trying to shrink and expand our inner sense. And if happiness can give us this feeling of agency with time, can we train this ability to zoom time in and out with small, very ordinary rituals before we sleep each night? Think back to a truly gentle moment you once had. It might have been a slow Sunday morning, soft light, no alarm, no urgent calls. You sit by the window with a cup of coffee or hot tea, or simply a glass of water. No one is pushing you to go anywhere. There's no clock in your head shouting, "Hurry up." That moment is very quiet, very ordinary, yet it feels longer than all the rushed mornings. That is when you briefly touch to save time zoom. Time outside stayed the same, but inside, you were no longer being pressed from behind. The feeling of being chased is one of the things that keeps our nervous system in constant alert mode. There may be no tiger running after us like in ancient times, but emails, bills, messages, medical appointments, family responsibilities, relentless news, all pile up into an invisible pressure. That feeling makes the heart beat a bit faster, the breath shallower, muscles tighter, sleep lighter. For many people, after 45, especially in the US, where the fast pace becomes habitual, the sense of always late, always lacking, always running lasts so long they forget what it feels like to be at ease. In that context, those quiet, happy moments, even tiny ones, become precious test grounds. When we allow ourselves to sit at the table with loved ones without rushing to stand up, when we listen to our grandchild's story without checking the time, when we walk slowly in the park, feeling leaves, wind, light, when we spend a few minutes at night reflecting on what we're grateful for, instead of tensely scrolling through news, we are sending a very different message to the nervous system. Nothing is chasing me right now. The brain, heart, breath, Muscles hear this and adjust together. From there, our sense of time softens. Scientifically, when we feel a sense of agency, even just in a few minutes, the brain regions related to control, planning, and will harmonize better with emotional areas. The feeling of helplessness drops, replaced by "I still have choices." This sense, more than the surface form of circumstances, calms the nervous system. Put simply, the brain likes to know there's room to breathe. And when there is breathing room, time is no longer a pursuer, but becomes a landscape we can walk slowly through. Strangely, many people think that to feel this way they must have luxurious vacations, long trips, big changes. But the brain doesn't necessarily need blue seas, high mountains, or fancy hotels to be less afraid of time. What it needs are clear moments that show, right now, I am not being driven. A quiet chair, soft light, slow breathing. One small, intentional act. These cost far less than a plane ticket, but their calming effect can be more durable because we can repeat them every day. And that is where small pre-sleep rituals step in as a very gentle yet powerful tool. Before bed is when many people easily fall into being pulled by the past and dragged by the future, recalling old stories, worrying about tomorrow, reading more news, opening more emails, replying to more messages. The brain is revved up again right when it needs to wind down. The nervous system flips back into being chased, must think it all through, must check everything, must know one more thing. The result? Poor sleep, tired mornings, and an even thicker feeling that a whole day went by without rest. If we want to train time zooming in a safe direction, this is the golden window. No complex rituals needed, just a few small, repeated steps to teach the brain. The last stretch of the day belongs to us. Here, no one is chasing. Then, those minutes before sleep can stretch into a calm zone, enough to balance a rushed day and slowly change how we feel about months and years. You can imagine an evening ritual as a small bridge from the busy world to the slow land. The bridge doesn't need to be long, but it needs to be clear. For example, each night, after finishing what must be done, you decide the last 15 minutes are untouchable. No email, no arguments, no news. You turn off screens, dim the lights. You sit down, maybe on your bed, your back supported, both feet relaxed. You inhale slowly to a count of 4, exhale more slowly to a count of 6. After a few rounds, you feel your body heavier, your heartbeat steadier. Then, in that space, you choose one thing from the day to zoom in on. A pleasant conversation, a small piece of good news, something you did right, an act of kindness you received or offered. You don't analyze or judge. You just look at it a bit more closely, like zooming in on a picture that warms you. By doing so, you are training your brain in 2 skills at once. Shrinking the noise, what you can't fix right now, and enlarging what nourishes, what deserves to be kept. That is the inner practice of time zooming. If repeated, such rituals become anchor points in your day, like your own private time markers, no matter how rushed the outside world is. In those 10-15 minutes, you return to holding your own hand. The brain learns, every night there is a space no one takes from me. The sense of having a fixed, safe space lowers overall baseline stress. And when baseline stress drops, we begin to feel the days lengthen in a pleasant way, less swept into invisible panic, more filled with small but quality calm patches. For those between 45 and 90, especially when health, finances, and relationships have weathered many storms. A sense of agency over time becomes even more important. Not agency in the sense of doing a lot, but in how we end the day. A day may hold many disappointments, but the last 10 minutes can still belong to you. To breathe, to remember, to release, to give thanks. And this chain of protected 10-minute pockets, stretched over months and years, will form a very clear, long sequence in memory. That was the period when I learned to treat myself more gently. You can tailor this Zoom ritual to your own style. Some people like writing 3 short lines. What made me happy today? What I learned? What I will put down and not carry into sleep? Some feel aligned with soft music, playing the same gentle track every night for a few minutes, so the brain recognizes this is the slowing down part. Some choose a candle. Some choose a drop of essential oil. Some need only a warm glass of water held in both hands. The item itself doesn't matter. What matters is the repeated message. This is a safe zone. Here, time doesn't chase, it just flows. Once we build this habit, we start to notice a slightly paradoxical and liberating truth. We don't need to change our whole life to feel better about time. We just need to protect the gateways in and out of our day more carefully. Not snatching up the phone the second we wake. Not cramming in more worry right before sleep. Just those 2 points are already 2 daily practices of time zooming. Expanding awareness of the moment we are still here. Shrinking the noise that demands we run. And gradually, the sense that the whole year flew by will start to crack, because within that blur, there will be countless little islands we've learned to build. Quiet evenings, moments of gratitude, times we chose to pause. Looking back, we won't just see one long smudge. We'll see a string of bright dots. Each bright dot is proof that, even when we couldn't change the world, we knew how to hold our inner time. Before you drift into sleep tonight, try shrinking all the noise just a bit. All the messages, bills, appointments, test results, fears about tomorrow. Imagine them a little farther away, on the other side of a door. Then zoom in on just one thing. The feeling of your body lying on the bed. Your breath going in and out. Your heart still working. The quiet of the room. Perhaps someone in the next room. Or a gentle memory dropping by. Right here, in these few breaths, you are not being chased. If you can, keep that feeling for 1 or 2 more minutes. Very likely, these tiny repeated minutes will be the part of life you remember most later. Not the rush trips, not the panic days, but the nights when you chose to zoom time in and out in a way that was kind to yourself. And perhaps that is a form of mature happiness, knowing how to stand still for a moment in the flow, watching time pass without feeling dragged away, feeling instead that you are present, alive, safe within this very breath. And when we have learned to shrink the noise and enlarge the quiet minutes, a natural next step appears, soft as a whisper. If the time inside us can be shaped by what we attend to, then tonight, right before sleep, to which moment do we want to grant that privilege? How do we want today to be remembered by which image, which feeling, rather than letting it dissolve as if it never existed? Before answering, let yourself lie still for a while. The night is an honest friend. It takes away busyness, dims the lights, softens the voices, leaving you with yourself. At 45, 60, or 90, each night is not only a break after a day, it is a link between life chapters, between 2 breaths lies a very small question that can change how we live the rest. Today, was there a moment worth lengthening in my memory? Neuroscience tells us something fascinating. While we sleep, the brain does not switch off. It is delicately filtering, reinforcing, and organizing memories. The hippocampus, where temporary memories stay, and the cortex, where long stories are stored, work like two librarians passing books back and forth throughout the night. What is repeated, emotionally tagged, marked important, stands a better chance of being kept. Noisy but meaningless bits often go to a dim drawer and slowly fade. In other words, each night we are almost given the right to send the brain a hint. Among all that happened, what deserves to be preserved more carefully? We usually do this unconsciously, by carrying into sleep the things that anger, regret, or worry us. We lie down and replay hurtful words, an unpaid bill, a pending test result, an old mistake. Repeated often enough, the brain concludes, this must be what my owner wants me to prioritize. And so those images get bolded, while small kindnesses and gentle pleasures from the very same day are ignored. If so, more than just a spiritual ritual, the question, which moment today deserves to be stretched, is a very practical move to join that organizing process. We are not forcing the brain to keep only the good, but consciously making sure the good does not drown. Each night before you close your eyes, take a very short time, even just a few dozen seconds, to choose one frame from the day. It doesn't have to be perfect, just humane enough. It might be the moment you realized you could still walk a few extra steps without support. The sound of your grandchild's laughter on a brief video call. The cashier at the store looking at you and saying, "Have a good day," with genuine eyes. The moment you made a hot cup of tea for yourself and sat in silence for the first time that day. A driver who let you merge. A nurse who spoke gently. A story on TV that reminded you your heart can still be moved. A second when you finally voiced a long-held sorry or thank you. Once that moment is chosen, let your mind stay with it a bit longer. Picture the setting, the colors, the sounds, the sensations in your body as it happened. Don't rush into analysis. Just allow yourself to be in it for a few more breaths. Each breath is a pen stroke, deepening that page of memory. You are telling your brain, this part matters to me. Biologically, that simple act can alter how memory is consolidated. Gentle, positive emotion combined with deliberate attention activates the safe nervous system, reduces stress region activity. This not only helps sleep, but binds the memory with a sense of okayness, ease. Gradually, these moments worth stretching become milestones, so that when you look back months or years later, you can say, yes, that period had many things going on, but I remember I had such evenings. What's precious is that this exercise does not depend on age, health, or circumstance. You don't need wealth, an empty schedule, or a perfect life. Whether you live alone in a small apartment or with a noisy family, whether you are well in treatment or worried about the future, that question is still yours. It doesn't ask you to deny pain or avoid reality. It simply asks, among everything that passed through today, is there something, however small or fragile, that deserves to be remembered gently? If on some nights you find nothing, that too is important. Don't use it to beat yourself up. Use it as a mirror for tomorrow. Perhaps you let the noise devour the whole day, leaving no chance for a good act to occur. Knowing that tomorrow you can be more intentional. Say something kind. Look up at the sky. Call someone. Be softer with yourself, so that when evening comes and the question returns, you have an answer. On the long journey of life, especially from midlife onward, we hear a lot about time management, making the most of time. Such phrases easily make us think time is a strict supervisor always asking, "Did you do enough? Were you efficient?" But at this point in life, perhaps what we need more is to learn to nurture time, not stuffing more in, but holding it more tenderly. The nightly question is one way to do that, gentle, without pressure, steadily reminding us that valuable time lives in moments of presence and meaning, not just in checked-off lists. If you keep that question each night, something interesting will happen. During the day, you'll start to live with different attention. You'll choose one moment tonight. So, unconsciously, you start looking for it. You notice kind gestures more easily, value conversations more, acknowledge your own efforts more. Instead of only scanning for failures, you don't try to manufacture big events. You simply open your eyes a bit wider to catch the quiet good. Over time, your inner map of memory changes. Fewer blank stretches of those years of nothing but worry. More bright points of the days I recognized the value of small things. For people in the US aged 45 to 90, those who have been through many personal and social ups and downs, who have watched so much change, this practice has another layer. It helps us rewrite our life story in a mature voice. Not sugar-coated, but complete. Not only recounting when we were hurt, but also when we were helped. Not only counting what we lost, but also what we kept. Each night, choosing one moment worth stretching is adding one more line to that narrative. Today, I did not let life pass without a single moment of gratitude. You can picture yourself, a few years from now, sitting in your familiar chair, looking out the window, closing your eyes and rewinding these recent years. If you start tonight, it's very likely what you see will not be a blur, but a sequence of clear frames, conversations, handshakes, quiet, sunny afternoons, tiny acts of courage, times you laughed without anyone asking you to. That is not magic. It is the result of you, many nights, choosing to extend what deserves extending. And if one day you face the final fear, the fear of finitude, those frames will be your allies. Because when you look back on a life with many chosen, received, and appreciated moments, you feel less like time betrayed you. You understand that you were present in your own life, not just passing through. That feeling, quiet but strong, is a form of freedom. Now, right in this moment, as your eyes are about to close, try doing the one thing this whole long passage has been gently inviting you to do. Ask very softly, only in your heart, no need aloud. Today, which moment deserves to be stretched? Don't make it hard. Let the first image that brings a sense of ease arise. Keep it there, like placing a small photo on your bedside table. Inhale lightly, exhale slowly, letting that image spread into the space around you. Then stop there. No more exercises. No need for perfection. Just trust that your brain has received the signal. This is important to me. Tonight, it will do the rest. Sorting, preserving, connecting. And you only need to do the simplest and hardest thing. Allow yourself to fall asleep with a good memory being stretched, instead of a worry being blown up. If tomorrow night you ask again, and the night after, and many nights after, very likely, from one small question, the inner map of your time will truly shift. Fewer frantic escapes, more conscious pauses, and perhaps one day you'll smile and realize time is the same, but my life no longer rushes past. Every day has at least one moment worth keeping, and I chose to keep it. You can close your eyes now and let your thoughts dissolve like mist. If your mind still wants to wander, let it continue the journey to the next video, where we'll go deeper into the mysteries of the soul. And if your body is tired, just let this sound lull you into sleep. No need to try. Only breathe and remember, everything you've been looking for is already resting quietly inside yourself.